All right, Dawg fans, here we go. Welcome back to yet another edition of Talkin Huskies right here on Root Sports Northwest. My name is Dave Softy Mahler, joined by Cam Cleland, producer Alex Altman. Of course, big thanks, huge thanks to our friends at the law offices of Catherine Clark for being here every week on the show. And Cam, the week will change on the calendar, but the result remains the same. The Huskies getting yet another win and giving the entire fan base a heart attack in the process. The Cardiac Kids have done it again, and they are now 8-0 after a 42-33 win on the farm against Stanford. How about that?
Man, Dave, I keep telling myself this. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be hard. The season is hard. Making it through this conference is hard. Now, I get it. There are expectations for a lot of us on the outside to see this team and how good they are and what they have to deal with. But the bottom line is, and everybody out there needs to see it, you're still finding ways to win football games. They may not be as sexy and beat downs by 50 and 60 points, but this is November, and you're 8-0, and you're heading into a 4-game stretch that could push you into the college football playoff. So right now, the main focus, all of us, let's get behind it. Let's talk about it. Let's see how it goes. But then USC, we're heading down to LA, where it feels like we haven't played there in a decade, but at what, 2019? So this is let's go November time.
Yeah, no question. And I think the problems with the Husky offense, if there are problems with the Husky offense, are crystal clear. Stop giving the football away. Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator, talked about that earlier this week.
We got to get it cleaned up, and it's got to be unit reinforcement, not just the guys with whistles. And guys got to realize last year we led the country in fumbles lost. You know, we only had lost 2 all year. And so right now it's just not good enough. It's not the standard, and we got to make it more important.
All right, so Can, the turnovers, especially near the red zone, near the goal line, are obviously a problem. UW had a pick at the goal line against ASU. They had a fumble near the goal line at Arizona by Jeremy Bernard, and they had 2 turnovers, both by Roma Dunze. A pick to Roma Dunze that you could argue was PI on Stanford, but UW may have gotten away with one earlier in the game as well. And then a fumble by number 1. So the turnovers, man, you don't like them, but you really don't like them when they come inside the opposing team's 20-yard line. What's going on there?
Well, you look at it and you hear Coach Grubb mention about execution, because it's the sharpness of how you prepare mentally. And certainly the teams are making those plays. But when you see the ball get stripped out like previously last week, that's just uncharacteristic. Interceptions happen occasionally. The way the ball bounced up against Rome and that jersey was tugged, and then it suddenly fell into the defender's hands with his back was in it. Okay, but I think it's critical, and you're right, and everybody understands it, is that those turnovers happening in the red zone. And this is something you can go all the way back to Michigan. Oh, I'm sorry, go back to watching it on the road versus Arizona. That was a critical one. Those moments and how you can take over a football game and take teams' energy and just flip the momentum, you're not capitalizing. So you're letting teams hang around. When you let a team hang around, you give them chance and you give them the confidence that they can come back and win. You know you're a better football team. So execution has to start in practice. And it starts up here too mentally with those guys focusing sharper, and maybe they need the mindset to get ready for a USC game. I'm okay with that, all right? Let's bring it up this week and sharpen up practice.
Yeah. Well, it feels like we've been saying the same thing for the last month or so. Going through this experience will make them better down the road. It will prepare them for a tough 4-quarter game against Oregon. And it worked against Oregon because they won. And you would think there'd be another 4-quarter game, Cam, against the reigning Heisman Trophy winner on the road at the Coliseum on Saturday. There's also a part of me that thinks at some point in time, this is going to come back and it's going to bite UW, because if not for a Jason Raines drop on a pass by a wide receiver, by the way, in this game on Saturday, Troy Taylor putting the ball in the hands of Bachmeier. Great 4th down play, had a receiver, a pass catcher, and Jason Raines wide open. He drops that. He's got room to run. They're down by 2. Who knows what happens in that game on Saturday? So we just got to stop relying on the sports gods, Cam, to bail us out every single week.
Well, I think a lot of us need to really sit back and take a deep breath and understand a few things. You can go back to every game and say, if this play. Do you remember how many times I've told you that big games, even when you're competing, opponent comes down to 4 to 5 plays? And also, too, let's just realize this, okay? This team, this group, Michael Penix, Kalen DeBoer, all of this, they've never been here before. Now, they may have done it at a different level. Not at Division I, not at Power 5, not with the college football top level. Has Michael Penix ever been here before? No. Okay? Caleb Williams coached in national championships. Ryan Grubb has done that. These guys don't know. Rome Odunze has not been 8-0 before. These guys are trying to figure it out and feel what it's like to have that weight, that pressure, but the desire to go after it, the notoriety, all of it's a big deal. So everyone says, well, why can't they just figure this out? It's new, and they will, and they're doing a pretty damn good job, under my understanding, is being 8-0 in this situation. I'm very happy where they're at, and I'm excited about USC, but reality sometimes needs to set in with all of us.
Well, and let's face it, they're getting everybody's best punch, right? As we said a couple weeks ago, playing UW, beating UW, if anybody can pull that off, is a big deal. I do feel, Cam, and I don't want to speak for the fan base, and I certainly don't want to speak for you, but I do feel like it's kind of Final Four or bust at this point. You're 8-0, you're in November, you're a top 5 team in the country. The daunting schedule the rest of the way looks daunting, but not as daunting as maybe it did about a month and a half ago. USC gave up 49 to Cal, for God's sakes. Oregon State lost to Arizona. Wazoo's lost 4 games in a row, and Utah has no quarterback and no offense whatsoever right now. Does it feel like Final Four or bust for you, pal?
I feel like I've said this from the start of the season. I think it's starting with Vegas. That was the goal from the start of the season. If you could be in Vegas at the end of the year with a chance to win a Pac-12 championship, the rest comes down to some people sitting in a closed room hoping that your resume is better than someone else's resume. I can't control that. What you can control is winning this conference. So when it does, yeah, it's 4 games and hopefully a 5th, and you're sitting there. That's what you can control. We knew that the start of this season and the Pac-12 looked great and came out like gangbusters. Teams were going to drop off. It gets hard. Injuries happen. Well, here we are sitting 4 games, and you got a shot at it.
Well, injuries happen, and they happened to UW on Saturday, and the flu bug happened to UW on Saturday. Maybe not an excuse, but a reason why at times Washington looked a little bit off kilter. We'll come back and recap again what we saw Saturday at Stanford, and then look ahead to a matchup with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, and USC at the Coliseum on Saturday at 4:30. Next on Talkin Huskies. All right, Dawg fans, back here again on Talkin Huskies right here on Root Sports Northwest. Big thanks to our friends at Nordstrom Heating and Air for all their support this season. Find them on the web, of course, at nordstromheating.com. And Cam, before we dive into USC on Saturday and the reigning Heisman Trophy winner in Caleb Williams, the first time UW will see a reigning Heisman Trophy winner since 2005 when they saw Matt Leinart and the Trojans and Pete Carroll. Let's go back and talk more about the red zone issues for Washington. UW obviously putting up a lot of points, over 40 points a game, but you feel like they're leaving a little bit of meat on that bone. Kalen DeBoer talked about the red zone turnovers earlier this week.
Those are the points that keep you from extending leads, getting the momentum. It's not even like you're not getting 3 points, you're getting 0. And so those points add up and, keep the game close. And I think just consistency. But I think our guys are in a great mindset. They're in a good mindset to go out there and attack.
Cam, so what do we attribute that to? We talked about that a bit in the first segment, heard from the offensive coordinator and Ryan Grubb, but this is not typical for this football team, at least not based on what we saw a year ago.
Well, a couple things. I can start to feel that maybe that the run game is starting to become a thought of we need to emphasize it more. If you noticed at the end of the game against Stanford, you could see how when you needed to make the plays in the last 4 plays in the push, you ran the football excellent in the red zone. Now, I'm not trying to convince and change the identity of who this team is. It's set up to pass the ball to set up the run. That's what this offense is built on. It's built on creating pressure outside, down the field squeeze, to get guys out of the box, to lighten the box, then to be able to run. You have 2 really solid tight ends. You have Jack and you have Devin Culp. But that shot where Devin Culp caught that touchdown in the red zone was wide open because of the threat of that run. And even when I mean wide open, he was wide open. So this is about protecting the football in the red zone and securing it. And when it's condensed, when it's tight down there, defenses play more man coverage. They bring more guys up in the box. The best teams in the country, when they need to, can get first downs in the red zone by running. And that is something that the emphasis needs to change. And I think Coach Grubb has recognized that along with Kalen DeBoer. So we got to become a little bit more with power football when we need to.
And we saw that after the turnover, Cam, after the fourth down stop on Saturday. All Dylan Johnson from the 28-yard line was all him. 4 plays, touchdown. Huskies win the game, and they take off with a W. How about the medical situation for these guys? Lots of guys out for the game last Saturday. Asa Turner didn't play. Thule didn't play. Cam Fab was out. And oh, by the way, everybody was sick, including your quarterback. Michael Penix, though, with the flu, 21 for 38, 369, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. That was a gutty performance by number 9 on Saturday, pal.
Yeah, sometimes I like to think of how good we are as just on the outside. How well do we perform when we're a little bit under the weather? Now throw in the fact you got 250, 280, 300-pound men running at you, stuff and everything's flying, and then you got guys and you're sick and you're trying to take IVs and all that. These aren't excuses, they're facts. They're the reality of how hard this season is. And the depth issue, when you're going into the season, man, it was going to test your depth at safety, and it certainly is. You have to understand as you're trying to hold it together in the back, D-line too is taken, and their rotation and how they're going. Offensive line's good to see Julius Buelow back. He's getting more reps, coming back in, getting settled in. All these guys, we're hoping November. Okay, November is when you get healthy and make the stretch run. But right now, guys are banged up and people are sick, and it's the reality. It's football, man. It's hard.
Yeah, I just know this. If I had the flu, I'm not even talking to you. I'm in bed, for God's sakes, let alone playing in a football game, for crying out loud. So kudos to those guys for sucking it up and going out there on Saturday. Speaking of sucking it up, the defense, Cam, on Saturday against the reigning Heisman Trophy winner and Caleb Williams. USC may have problems on defense, but their offense is humming along. Here's co-defensive coordinator William Inge talking about the matchup with the Heisman Trophy winner and Caleb Williams on Saturday.
He does a great job of being able to manipulate, move around in the pocket while still keeping his eyes down the field. He can feel where a pressure point may be coming. He can step up, move around, and escape wherever he needs to be, and he still keeps his eyes down the field. And we also think that the receivers do a great job of seeing those scenarios when he is in stress to be able to extend the play. The short guys go deep, deep guys come short, and often they're able to get some free play. So that is something that is going to be a major point of emphasis for us.
So this Husky defense, and I've said it, Cam, a couple times this week on the radio, I don't know if they have a real star at any layer of the defense right now, but do they have enough to at least slow down and contain Caleb Williams on the high-octane USC offense on Saturday?
Well, the guy that's going to have his best game, and he had a great game last week, was Braylon Trice. The amount of pressures he had, he came off the edge. His motor was monstrous, and you could see it. ZTF also. All of those guys, Sakai Salafoa, everybody that's on edges, rush lanes. You could hear the coaches talk about it. Be disciplined. This guy extends plays, and every dang week, well, I've said it every week, it is exhausting with how many athletic quarterbacks that are in this conference, but they are. That's how this works. The guys extend plays with their feet. Happened at Stanford. It happened the week before at Arizona State. Keep going back to Arizona. Of course, Oregon. Everybody. And it's going to get harder, and the stretch goes in November. You have to contain the quarterbacks. But Caleb Williams will make mistakes. He will take risks. And this USC team is reeling. They're going to give up points, too. And we're going to score points. It might be a shootout, Dave. It might be like, who has the ball last? Oh, well, you just have to make more plays in the end.
Well, California put up a 49 spot, and it should have been a 50 burger on USC on Saturday. So I think a lot of fans believe that if California can put up nearly 50 points on USC's defense, what's Michael Penix and company about to do on Saturday? We'll find out. Come back and talk about more about the matchup with USC and UW next as we continue right here on Talkin Huskies. Well, the Huskies are 8-0, top 5 football team in the country, but they will be tested for certain this Saturday at USC against the Trojans at 4:30. Welcome back to Talkin Huskies, everybody. Dave Softy, Mahler, Cam Cleveland, producer Alex Altman with us right here on Root Sports Northwest. Don't forget to find us on YouTube as well throughout the week. All right, so Cam, the numbers for both these football teams are very similar, at least on the offensive side of the ball. UW, number 9 in the nation in scoring offense. USC, number 2. USC number 5 in yards per attempt through the air. UW number 2. Passing yards per game. UW number 1. USC number 7. The over-under in this game is 76. Are we expecting an absolute fireworks show on Saturday at the Coliseum?
Well, the numbers match up. It sounds like we're not going to see 7-3. I don't think so. That sounds like about right. I'd maybe take the over on that. A look at it. Look, that's great. Let's have a game for the ages. You want to put on offensive spectacle? That's great. But we do know that it's going to come down to a few turnovers and how well this defense can stop Caleb Williams, and they're going to have to figure out how to do that. They're going to have to be crazy disciplined, and he will make a mistake. And hopefully when we look at this game and we talk about this next week, we will see that this Husky team was a lot more sharp and decisive in protecting the football because it's on the road and it's in the Coliseum. Hostile environments. This team's done very good on the road. Yeah, they won games. They figured it out. But yes, man, I have so much excitement about the game, but I also have realized that this team's going to score points, but their defense, when I see USC's defense on film, it's lacking.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about that because Alex Grinch is a familiar name to Pacific Northwest football fans. He's the old defensive coordinator at Wazoo, obviously was at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley and came to USC with him. And that's the difference in this game, Cam, is the USC defense is getting torn apart. You look at the numbers overall, Washington tied for 33rd in the country in scoring defense. USC is 109th. USC has allowed 38 touchdowns this year. Washington has allowed 21. I'm not sure if we can call the UW defense an elite defense at this point, but we certainly cannot call USC's defense an elite defense. That, to me, is the big advantage in this game for UW on Saturday.
No, it's not just a big advantage. It's the advantage. It's huge. It means stops. Stops on defense, 3 and outs, if that's possible. And you can do that. Turnovers, they will do that. The undiscipline of their secondary. Sometimes I would call it, Dave, I'd call it a lack of effort a little bit. Like the tackling isn't there. Their spacing, their pass rush. They have some guys that are fast and they are athletic. But it's the discipline of the team that I look at, and that's where the massive advantage for this Husky team is that when they play defense, they look like they care. Like they really like defense and want to get after it, and this team can do it.
No question. And we mentioned the California game against USC last week, a 50-49 win by USC at Berkeley at Memorial Stadium. And I mean, my God, Cam, they were 1 point away from tying that game, an extra point away from tying that game at 50-50. If it goes to overtime somehow, some way, and USC loses that game, and they're a 3-loss team right now, I think USC is packing it in. I'm really curious to see how much desire, how much want to USC has on Saturday, and what kind of fan base we see show up. We saw a lot of Husky fans. You were down there. We saw a lot of Husky fans in the crowd on the farm at the game at Stanford last week. I talked to one buddy of mine, ex-Husky coach Dick Baird, as a matter of fact. Shout out Coach Baird, who said it was the most pathetic football crowd he's ever seen last weekend at Stanford. I'm curious to see how much of the Trojan faithful even show up for this thing on Saturday.
I think they're going to show up, but I also do believe that Husky contingent is going to show out. It's going to do there. There's going to be a lot of purple and gold. And I agree with Coach Baird. It was sad down on the farm. Peace out. I said it about Stanford. It's pathetic. That's just horrendous as to how you treat college football. But oh well, we move on because we don't care. We're like that. We're different. We care about it. Let's go down to USC and take care of business and understand that this team might be packing it in, but they're the Caleb Williams show. That whole team is based on Caleb Williams. As he goes, that team goes. So it's the University of Caleb Williams. So just find a way to knock out number 13. Not literally, just figuratively, because he's going to be the one that controls the football game. Energy, tempo, all of it.
Well, in the words of Coach DeBoer, and you said it right there, Cam, we are built for this. You hit him from the left, you hit him from the right, and then you take everybody down. I'm not sure what he said after that. Probably something we can't air on TV, but we'll come back and wrap it up and look ahead again to USC on Saturday right here on Talkin Huskies. Final segment for us right here on Talkin Huskies. Again, big thanks to our friends at the law offices of Catherine Clark and our buddies at Nordstrom Heating and Air. Find them on the web at nordstromheating.com. If you want to be a part of the show and Why wouldn't you, for God's sakes? You see the email there on your screen, talkinhuskiesw@gmail.com. Jump on, send us a note, and be a part of this, because the Husky wagon is off and running, baby, with a maybe a 9-0 start after a win over USC if they can get it this Saturday. And Cam, are we looking at another tight game? Are we looking at a repeat of what we saw in 2010 when Mr. Folk and the Dawgs went down to the Coliseum and got the game-winning field goal and knocked off the Trojans? I'll take it right now, but I would like to have maybe a little more breathing room on Saturday. What do you think happens this weekend, pal?
I think we're going to get the best Husky game since Oregon. No question. I do believe that. I believe that these guys understand that when your family's watching, there's a lot of Southern Cal boys, just how you have to recruit. Everybody has to recruit Southern Cal. So it's like you're going home, and you want to show off in front of the family. And it's SC, the bright lights, Trojan. They're going to be putting up this garbage like this, and they're going to be dun, 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 dun. And I can already hear it in my head. It's exhausting. I don't even want to hear it. Just shut them all up, okay, and do everything you can to pound them. Watch the Notre Dame game. Watch what they did to USC. That's what I expect Washington to do. Control the line of scrimmage, push them around, and show them why we're the team right now.
Well, again, the first time UW will see a reigning Heisman Trophy winner since 2005 when they saw Matt Leinart. First trip to the Coliseum, Cam. How about this? Since 2015, when a freshman quarterback named Jake Browning went down to the Coliseum with Chris Peterson and beat Steve Sarkisian and Cody Kessler 17-12. And I agree with you. That's why I think if the Huskies win the toss, I want to be on defense first. I think a stop of Caleb Williams and the USC offense on drive number 1 could motivate these guys for the entire game.
Yeah, I agree too. And if you get that football, come on out. You take advantage of it, kick it deep, do everything you can to create the energy and suck it out of that entire old, decrepit place that's still iconic. Don't get me wrong, it's still iconic. It's USC. But you can feel the ghost up there, and I get it. It's Halloween. It doesn't matter. It's that time of the season. But I feel we'll be pretty good heading into November.
Yeah, it's old versus new. It's Troy Dannon versus Jen Cohen in the AD Bowl, baby, coming up on Saturday. So we'll come back next week, talk about the whole thing. UW-USC, Saturday, 4:30 for producer Alex Altman, Cam Cleland. My name is Dave Softy Mahler. Don't forget to join us next week right here for Talkin' Huskies on Root Sports Northwest.